All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order. August 21st, Thursday, of the Clinton Design and Review Board. First order on the agenda is approval of the minutes from our meeting on July 17th, 2025. I believe everybody here has had a chance to review and have a copy of them. If I can get a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Ms. Susan, can I get a second?
I'll second.
All in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, hearing none, passes. All right, any old business? Ms. Phil? Old business under distress. All right, so new business is item D on the House of Pizza Musgrove Street request. I'll call on you first, Mr. Phil, to address the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This matter has been before you on March 17th of 2025 as well as June 12th of this year. And in light of that, Mr. Meadows, our city manager, has some information he'd like to provide to you this evening.
Mr. Meadows?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
First of all, on behalf of the city council, we appreciate what you do. I know it's a tough job. You have rules and policies that were given to you to uphold. And we sincerely thank you for doing that. But I would like to make a request that, if at all possible, that we reach a happy medium in this matter. House of Pizza is the only restaurant in town that stays open after dark on most days. We do have, I think Steamers is open, a couple nights a little later, but they're a staple here. They're open 7 days a week. And right down Musgrove Street, right by Musgrove Street, and you will see that. So with that being said, I don't want a sign to come between our businesses coming to town, hopefully down the road. And I ask that you reach a happy medium in your deliberations, whether it's tonight or another night. But let's make a concerted effort to reach an agreement that we can get this matter past us.
All right, thank you, Mr. Meadows. All right, discussion. Ms. Slice.
Well, I fully appreciate your comments. I wonder if there has been any change from the original application. Has there been any change to the sign design since it was denied in June?
There's
No change. I had a couple of comments, and I wonder if this is the time to insert them. Harold, if you're good to go?
Your discussion.
Okay. I'd like to state a few things that I think might be helpful to everyone, because I'm not sure all the public recognizes everything that's involved with the Design Review Board, which exists to protect the architectural integrity of historic structures and the character of the city. The new location of the House of Pizza is within the Historic Preservation District and the Zoning Overlay District. As such, the Historic Preservation District, and I quote, exemplifies the cultural, economic, and historic heritage of the community. It embodies distinguishing characteristics of a type, style, period, or specimen in architecture or engineering. It is part of or related to a distinctive element of community planning and it represents an established and familiar visual feature of the neighborhood or community. And I had jotted down a couple of things about our ordinances that I thought applied: that signs shall not be internally lighted or backlit, that signs are unacceptable with high-intensity lights or excessive external illumination, and that signs may not obscure or remove elements such as windows, cornices, or decorative details to accommodate signs. That's for everybody. The signs must be scaled to fit the size, design of the building and the storefront, that the maximum size of the sign is limited to 20 square feet or 15% of the front wall area, whichever is greater. That signs be placed on wall spaces such as the sign band or the frieze of the building. The sign band or the frieze is defined as the horizontal segment of the storefront located above the display window and below the second floor windows. This is taken verbatim from our Design Review Board standards. The application for the sign as it stands currently does not meet these criteria for 112 Musgrove. I will remind everyone that in March, staff recommended denial of the sign at 112 Musgrove, which is the new location of the House of Pizza. The motion was tabled and other options requested of the applicant. On June 12, staff recommended denial of the sign at 112 Musgrove due to the fact that no changes were made to the previous application presented in March. The application was denied by unanimous vote and due to the sign again not conforming to the city standards for the Historic Preservation District. To put this into a little bit of context, I've lived here for a while. Both 112 and 120 Musgrove are described on the National Register of Historic Places as being part of the Clinton Commercial Historic District. 120 Musgrove, the old location, was built in 1910 and was described as a one-story brick building. This is in the National Register of Historic Places material. It housed a department store in early years. More recently, it was a restaurant prior to purchase by the House of Pizza. This is the location that burned. 112 Musgrove was built between 1906 and 1912 and is the new location of the House of Pizza. This two-story brick building contains second-floor windows on the front facade. It sits adjacent to the city station at 110 Musgrove, which was constructed as City Hall and Fire Station, a well-preserved building that represents an excellent example of the historic character of downtown. Any sign approved for the House of Pizza prior to 2025 was for 120 Musgrove, the old location. A new application naturally would be required for their new location at 112 Musgrove, just like a new permit for opening business would have been required. These are two separate applications for two separate locations with distinct differences, one for a one-story building and one for a two-story building with second-story windows. Again, our ordinance states that sign must be placed below the second-story windows and not obstruct windows or building features because we want to preserve what is characteristic of our town. While I fully appreciate all attempts to be helpful to an applicant for a certificate of appropriateness, I must again express concern if we are being asked to ignore code, which this is intended to preserve the character of the city. No new information was presented at our June meeting. During discussion of exceptions to code, and the sign request was denied by unanimous vote, and the review period for revision had passed since denial was voted on June 12. An applicant is supposed to wait 6 months to reapply for a sign after denial, which would fall in December, and I refer you to City Code Section 68G. Please be reminded that our codes stipulate once a denial has been rendered from the DRB on an application, then the applicant's only recourse is to file appeal with the Lawrence County Circuit Court. The 30-day window for that appeal has passed, and I refer to City Code 6811. Notice was made June 12, 25, as Carson Barclow, agent for House of Pizza, was present at the board meeting and heard the denial ruling for the current application. Why have codes and ordinances if we're not willing to apply them, as all swore an oath to do? If codes are set aside, this board will constantly be presented with exceptions to consider. Is that fair to a business down the street that has followed code? I certainly appreciate the House of Pizza's presence, that reps sit down with our planning consultant and come up with an amended design that meets the code. And that seems like an easy solution. But if the design review board and city staff are to protect the historical integrity and character of what is left of the historic district, then we have to follow the guidelines. I appreciate you letting me give that little bit of an overview.
Any more discussion, Ms. Slay?
I don't think so at this point.
Okay. Mrs. Tallman?
Hi, I'm not quite as prepared, and and you are correct on all she is correct on all of her items that she brought up. I guess the part that I think we need to consider are a couple things. There's a lot of codes in our city that are not being followed. I mean, I think we all know that. We have limited staff, we have limited everything. There's lots of things that are in downtown Clinton that are not following the code. And it's difficult for me to, when people, and it's just not House of Pizza, it's, when people are asking for a sign, they do have to have it permitted and come before us. So they're willing participants coming before us, asking us for a denial or an acceptance, but everybody else that's out there that is just flying under the radar, we're not holding them accountable. And so I think it's a very complicated issue, and I also think that the beginning, when the sign was permitted the first time, I was under the impression that it was permitted for one way and it was put up another. And I've seen the permit, and it was written very clearly what was going up, and it was permitted to go up as the sign that was up there. And so I just struggle with that. But I do think even after this meeting, if we vote whatever it is, I think we need to take our job more serious and really look at everything downtown and get a standard going and educate people when they buy a business downtown that this 12-page, you have to adhere to this, and we don't do a good enough job doing that, and I think that has to be part of the equation. Done.
All right, Mr. Laird.
Sure. Thank you for recognizing me. Thank you for everyone who's already made comments tonight. I know that one of the big concerns over this sign denial in June was the fact that a very similar sign went up on the building that burned over a year ago. As a member of the committee who voted both for that sign and against the one in June, I think it's important for people to understand both of those decisions, so I wanted to speak on both of those briefly. The previous sign that was approved by the Design Review Board, standard practice is that we get 24 hours to review things that come before our committee. That day we were told that it was an emergency that needed to be heard, and we received the application that morning. Most of us work full-time. I didn't get to read it till after 5 o'clock for a 6 o'clock meeting. Just being honest about the way that happened, okay? In the meeting, there was a discrepancy in if it was an internally lit sign or not. As a member of the committee, I was under the impression that this was not an internally lit sign, which is clearly against the city standards. When the sign went up, I'm not blaming any particular person because I cannot tell you where the breakdown happened. But as a member of the Design Review Board, the sign that went up is not the sign I thought I voted for. I'm not blaming anyone because I don't know where the breakdown happened. But I do know that as a member of the committee, I did not have the information to actually vote on the sign that went up. We also got very limited information on that sign prior to the decision that night there was a sense of urgency for the sign that night. I don't understand the sense of urgency, so I can't say why it was there. I'm not saying why it occurred, but I can tell you there was a sense of urgency that a decision needed to be made that night, and nobody wanted to stand in the way of business in our town. The second opportunity came around. It was very clear that this sign, now we know by the application and the information that we had, that the sign that was presented to us did not meet the city's standards for the historic district. The first time we heard about this sign at 112, we offered feedback and sent the application back to the applicant so they wouldn't have to redo the process. It came before us a second time, and we felt like the most clear thing to do was just to deny it. So it was clear that we were not going to approve this sign. Before the decision was made to deny it, I asked the sign company if the sign had been built, and they said no. The reason I asked that question was because I understand the confusion 100%, and I did not want the applicant to be out of money for a sign that they absolutely thought we were going to approve. If that were the case, I would have had a much different discussion that night, but the sign had not been built according to the sign builder who was at the meeting. So the clearest thing I felt like to do that evening was to deny it, to tell them why it was denied, and then to let them reapply with a sign that either would meet code or with a variance that we could have calls for. The idea for this board is that we are supposed to maintain the standards that are set forth for the historic district or grant variances when there is a good cause for variance. We were never presented a good cause for a variance on this. And if we grant a variance with no good cause, then we might as well rewrite the standard, and that's up to the city. If you want to rewrite the standard, feel free. That's where I just wanted to make sure everyone understood the difference between the two decisions, where the first decision came from, and why some people who voted for that initial sign also voted against the sign this time. It was because there was a miscommunication somewhere about that initial sign.
All right, thank you, Mr. Laird. Mr. Metters.
Okay. In the March meeting, I was not here when the sign was voted on for 120. But in the March meeting, when the plan was brought to us, we asked them to come back with changes to make it meet code. When they came back in June, nothing had changed, and there was a lot of discussion about what kind of sign would be acceptable. And at that point, the proposal was denied. I don't understand, and we discussed ways the sign could be mounted, different things. There's concern over the age of the brick, how many holes you would have to put in it to mount the sign here versus there. But the fact that there was no modifications at all when it came back, yeah, I think we need to find a resolution, but I think there's got to be some give and take on both sides.
All right, thank you, Mr. Metters. Mr. Stoddard.
I was here also last year when we approved the first sign for 120, and it was my understanding that it would not be an internally lit sign. And also the new sign for the new location, the applicant came and presented it, and we had a discussion about internally lit signs and asked were there any other options or any other designs that they were going to bring forth. They said there weren't any other designs. We're giving these guidelines to go by, and to deviate from that, we have other applicants that come forward and follow those guidelines. So in the future, you know, how can we govern new applicants? You know, that's my concern. But House of Pizza is great business. I enjoy going there. My family goes there. We want businesses downtown. But as the others have said, we have guidelines to follow. And so, there has to be some give and take here. You know, we have to be given some options. Or if the city feels that, you know, they want to give the applicants the leeway with the signs, then hey, that's fine.
All right, thank you, Mr. Stoddard. Ms. Anderson?
Well, I'm probably the newest member of this committee, so I don't know anything about what happened before. I think that we value the House of Pizza as a business in Clinton, and I guess my question now would be, previously the sign had not been built. Has the sign been built at this time? That would be one of my questions. And because we value the businesses in Clinton, I understand that there have to be standards and guidelines. I just wonder if there's a way that we can make everybody happy. And I don't know what that looks like, so maybe the city knows better what that would look like, but I just think we need to find a happy medium for everybody.
Okay. All right, thank you, Ms. Anderson. So I believe we come to a point, Mr. Phil, where we've got to come up with some options here, what we do moving forward, okay? So we can either vote again on this right now. Am I correct in saying that?
You can reconsider it.
We can reconsider and vote. We can table it and go back and say, hey, we're going to do a workshop and scrub through the ordinance as it is, all right, to see if we can find some type of happy medium. We can table it to review, which I guess would be the same thing, or grant a variance with as the sign is with the application. Is there any other options that are out there that I'm not seeing?
Well, I've come up with 5. There are probably more than 5, but you can maintain your previous decision. Previously, you had discussions about the internal illumination of the sign as one point, and the second point was placement of the sign, whether it would be allowed above or required below the second-story windows. Our ordinance says below the second-story windows. So you could amend your previous decision to allow for internal illumination. You could amend your previous decision to allow for placement above the second-story windows. You have talked, as a group, you have talked about making some changes district-wide to the design standards, maybe making them a little bit more up-to-date with some other community standards, that would allow some flexibility. And we were planning to do that in the fall. That certainly can be a part of that discussion, and we could do that at that point. And the other option is to allow the applicant to reapply for a sign permit with modifications, working with them on something that is suitable for all parties.
So we can either maintain the vote as it is, amend concerning internal lighting and placement. Am I right in saying that? We can ask the applicant to reapply with modifications. And I guess, or we could table it and review the ordinances that we have,
Correct.
right? So those are really our options right there.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, am I out of order in asking, could I speak to the board?
I'm not taking public comments right now. We're trying to come up with a solution here. But thank you. Table to recommend. All right. Ms. Slide, discussions on Mr. Phil and the staff's recommendations there.
Obviously, I think all of us would like to find a solution that works for everybody. And that's why so much effort is being put into this by a lot of people. In many ways, and we're not really supposed to make suggestions, but I did in the June meeting. And I still think it's a good idea. But I think we could sit down with the owners and come up with some good options in a casual conversation. I don't know if it has to be with Phil. There are one or two of us up here who are closet artists. That's what prompted me to make those comments earlier. I think keeping well, maybe I'm not supposed to say what I would suggest. Physically, is that out of order?
I was just kind of referring to our options moving forward, you know.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand that. But,
Yeah.
To me, the profile of House of Pizza, the white wording itself could be etched in such a way that it could fit on a board below the second-story windows and externally illuminated with gooseneck lights, something like that. It would still have the same profile that they want, but would meet our lighting codes, for example. So I suppose I would be inclined to table this at the moment and come up with some, no, excuse me, I would be inclined to reapply, to ask them to reapply with some modifications, because I do think those are, there's got to be a solution somewhere that would fit in with the character of the street and please the other people who are trying to comply with codes.
Mrs. Tallman?
I don't know. I really don't. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what the best solution is
Okay.
right now. I need to hear everybody else.
Mr. Laird?
Sure. One thing I would say is that the ethics of this committee do preclude us from having conversations with folks who have business before this committee outside of this meeting, which I understand makes our ability to have input difficult. But that's the way our ethics are set. So I can't have a conversation about this with anyone at House of Pizza away from today in this meeting during this time. Ethics preclude me from being able to do that. So here's my 2 cents. I like your sign. I don't think it looks bad. I like the color. I don't have a problem with the size. I approved the size of the sign last time too. I don't think it looks bad on the building. I understand that the frieze is very small for a sign of that size, okay? I don't have a problem with it going up top, but I cannot find a reason anywhere to grant the variance on the internal illumination unless the city decides to change that code. So I am inclined, if a matter comes back before my committee with a sign of that size above the windows, I can come up with calls to grant a variance based on the size and the size of the frieze. But there's no justification for a variance on the internal illumination. That's my 2 cents.
All right, thank you, Mr. Laird. Mr. Metters?
I can see justification for a variant on the internal lighting. I can see the justification for a variance on location. I can't see one for both. In my opinion, if it's put above the second story's windows, internally lit, a comment has been made, it will improve safety, but it doesn't need to be seen from Whiteford's. And that sign is very bright, or the old sign was very bright, And the internal illumination, if we grant that, it needs to have restrictions.
You mean like the lighting? The
Yes.
amount of lighting?
The
Okay.
amount of illumins that it
Okay.
disperses.
Right, okay.
Is that it, Mr. Mender?
Yes.
Mr. Stoddard?
I think the applicant should reapply and, with other options. Like I said, the internally lit stipulation is, I think is where we're stuck at. But I would like to see other options. Again, we want our businesses to thrive downtown, but we have guidelines. And when the other applicants come to us, they have read these guidelines, they have met with Phil or other city officials as far as what they need to do as far as applying for variances. So I think they should reapply.
Mrs. Anderson?
This has been in process for how long now?
We first heard this matter in March.
Yeah, March.
So that was, I guess, before me, I don't even know. How long has it been since the guidelines and ordinances have been reviewed?
When do we do that, Mr. Phil?
Because he just said that we were gonna do it again in the fall.
Right.
We reviewed them as a group January,
I think it was at the beginning of the year.
right, and
Yeah.
then we talked about some ideas, and then we discussed at our last two meetings to be thinking about different options, and then we would discuss them in the fall. So we could begin that at our next meeting or in October, however you'd like to move forward.
I think I don't know. I don't want it to appear that we're making exceptions for one person and that we can't make for other people. So I guess that was my question about when was the last time ordinances were reviewed or changed or modified for current day?
Yeah, to answer your question on that, we went through a pretty thorough scrubbing of them in January, February, I believe.
And I
Yeah.
think possibly because I'm not a business owner or not an expert on signs and illumination and all those kinds of things. So when we're reading, we're kind of reading words and we understand what we're reading, but do we actually understand the application? What does this actually look like that we're reading? You know, what does it actually mean? So maybe it's time to look at that again and have some real clarity about what it actually looks like. For me, I understand that every business wants a sign and basically deserves one, but I do agree that we cannot continuously make exceptions. So maybe there needs to be some more clarification to the guidelines.
All right, so Ms. Phil, those are our options moving forward here. So I guess the next steps would be to get a motion on the floor to be able to vote what we do moving forward.
I would make the motion that we invite House of Pizza to reapply, having heard our concerns, and to hear it as soon as possible. That's my opinion. I would be open to a mid-month meeting if that's what it takes.
Do I get a second on the motion?
I second the motion.
Mr. Stoddard. Motion by Mr. Laird, second by Mr. Stoddard. All in favor of asking them to reapply with modifications? Am I right in saying that? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Hearing none. Passes. All right, next item on the agenda is any other items in front of the board, Mr. Phil?
Yes, sir.
Director's report.
The only other thing I had is the discussions of modifications to the standards, our review of that. I'll be preparing that. If there's anything particular that you'd like for us to focus on, I'll be glad to do that. If there are any other communities that you would like for us to pull some standards, what they have, if you like what a particular community has, what they allow, we can certainly pull that information in and look at that comprehensively for the downtown area. But I'll be glad to do that at whatever timeline you want to move forward with that. Also, can I add one more thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
We are in the process of updating our comprehensive plan. I would be happy to share all of the sections of the comprehensive plan with you. There are 10 sections of that. 5 of those sections have been drafted so far. The one that pertains mostly to the DRB is our cultural resources element. And I would really like to have you in your input on information contained within that element, which includes historical landmarks within our community and goals and objectives of how to move cultural resources forward in our community. So if you'd like to look at that at your next meeting or the following meeting, I'll be glad to schedule that and provide you copies of that. If you'd like to review the other sections of the ordinance, of the plan, which deal with community facilities, budgeting, natural resources, population, all that other stuff, I'll be glad to provide you copies of that. The Planning Commission is reviewing the full extent of the comprehensive plan.
Great. Any questions for Mr. Phil on any of those things?
I would suggest that we do pull some standards from other cities. I think two that are local that might be good to look at would be Fountain and Greer. You may have others that you think of as well. I think the more we can look at, the better.
All right, thank you, Mr. Phil. I don't have any reports, recommendations. Appreciate everybody's willingness to serve on this board, and I just want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Ms. Slice, any reports or recommendations? Mrs. Tallman?
The only thing I would say is that when we do this, you know, that the meeting that we had where the architect came, you know, he did have ideas of how to get the public input. And I just think going forward, that's important. I mean, I know that can't happen right now for this instance, but we need to figure out what people really want, you know, and at least I do, and maybe that's wrong. I think we're here to represent the community in a sense, and I think I'm here as my ward. Like, I think we need to have some visuals so they know. I don't even understand the language, y'all. I really don't. Backlit, facelit. I don't understand all this. And so that is, you know, just education sessions. Maybe him doing it.
Thank you, Mr. Tallman. Mr. Laird?
Only thing I wanted to say in addition tonight was I wanted to say thank you to a couple people. Mr. Metters, thank you for taking the lead and helping us communicate about this issue at this meeting. Also, to Phil and Sonia, thank you for the work that you do. I appreciate the way in which you keep us informed, the way in which you present options, but never push an agenda. The decision is always ours, and I appreciate that about both of you.
Thank you, Mr. Laird. Mr. Metters?
Only thing is there the ability to add public comment into our agenda? And should we allow that during our meetings?
Mr. Phil?
I do think it's important to include public comment. Some communities identify applications for certificates of appropriateness as public hearings, and you could certainly do that. Historically, you have not identified, had a formal public hearing on these items, but you have allowed for public comment from the applicant when you're reviewing a situation. Like tonight, you didn't have a formal application in front of you, so in the future, when you do have something to consider, I would certainly encourage you to get the input from the public and the applicant to get some ideas that may not be presented from either the staff, the applicant's information, or from things that you may consider. So it's always good to get that.
Thank you, Mr. Phil. Is that all, Mr. Metters?
Yes.
Mr. Stoddard?
No further comments.
Ms. Anderson? Okay. Well, I need a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So motion.
Mr. Laird, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Metters. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.